Hey guys, it's Steve for CollectorMania here continuing our 32 series. We've broken into 4-color now, so super exciting. I know I'm ready to be here. First up, we're going to go with Breya, Etherium Shaper. So this commander is absolutely ridiculous. People have been breaking her with like all these crazy artifact combos, and it definitely makes sense. A lot of people just went straight from Shroom to this chick. Adding red into their decks was not hard. So anyway, she is a 4-cost, of course. She's Esper-Red. Legendary artifact creature human, of course, 4/4. When Breya Etherium Shaper enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying. Pretty cool. And then she's got an activated ability for 2, sacrifice 2 artifacts, choose 1. Breya deals 3 damage to target player, pretty good. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn, also really good. And you gain 5 life. So I would say 3 pretty relevant abilities. I've actually used the gain 5 life more times than I ever thought I would, just to keep myself alive sometimes. So really relevant card, has a lot of cool words on it, I guess. So anyway, let's break into the deck. We've got a stack of Planeswalkers. Now I was having a really hard time deciding on which ones I wanted to feature, so we just decided to talk about all of them. I do feel that they are all pretty important. So first up, we've got Dak Faden. So he's a 3-cost Planeswalker. His first ability, well, 3 costs, 3 loyalty. I guess I should point that out. +1, target player draws 2 cards and then discards 2 cards. It's really relevant just because we are playing an artifact deck, and artifact actually really plays with the graveyard quite a bit. So really cool that way. Gain control of target artifact is -2, so really good ability there. You can steal somebody's, Gilded Lotus or their Mindslaver or anything like that, assuming they don't have mana to activate it right there. -6, you get an emblem whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more permanents, gain control of those permanents. So the ultimate is obviously where you want to be, but you know how Planeswalker ultimates go. Past that, we've got Saheeli Rai. She's another 3-cost Planeswalker. Her +1 is Scry 1. She deals 1 damage to each opponent. Not bad. And then -2, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. That token gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. So her -2 is really what we're after here. There's a lot of cards in here that just have amazing ETBs, like the Gearholts and, just things like that. So her -2 is amazing. Granted, you can also just copy like your Goblin Welder or something like that just for a turn to get another activation out of that, because it does gain haste. So there's that. Her ultimate is pretty good too. Search for your library for 3 artifact cards with different names, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So pretty cool. And then we've got Duretti, Ingenious Iconoclast. This is the black-red Duretti. +1, put a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token with Defender onto the battlefield. So pretty good. -1, you may sacrifice an artifact if you do destroy target artifact or creature. So another really relevant ability, especially with as many artifacts as we're running. Ultimate is choose target artifact card in your graveyard or artifact on the battlefield. Put 3 tokens that are copies onto the battlefield. So I have done absolutely ridiculous things with this ultimate, and it's actually easy to get to just because people don't usually pay attention to this Planeswalker as much because it's not as backbreaking. But I've done Sphinx of the Steel Wind before, I've done a Soul Ring before, so yeah, really cool card. And then we've got the Mac Daddy, Duretti Scrap Servants. This card is good enough to be a commander on its own. It's one of the only ones that can be a commander, so and we'll definitely focus on that later. So +2, Duretti, or discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. So you're rummaging. Then you've got sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. One of your big recursion engines right here. Really cool card. The ultimate is absolutely ridiculous. It's -10, so it takes a while to get there. You get an emblem with whenever an artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. It's absolutely bonkers to get to that ultimate. And I have several times, and it will win you the game very quickly, usually. And then our last Planeswalker that I wanted to feature is Tezzeret, Master of Metal. It's kind of funny that this Planeswalker is better than the one that is like the standard one, I guess you want to call it, the 4-cost one. It's just so much more useful. It's +1. Let me talk about it. It costs 6, has loyalty of 5, so not bad. It's not terrible. Artwork is totally awesome too. I love this thing. +1, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Or, I said that totally wrong. In a random order, there we go. Already right there, that +1 is way better than the other one's plus ability. Like this, finding just an artifact can be crucial, for you, especially late game when you're, say your hand is completely empty. This card is great for that. And then -3, target opponent loses life equal to the number of artifacts you control. Now you can actually win the game with this, especially if you're late game and you just have a board full of mana rocks and like they don't have anything, and you're just like, well, I'm just gonna -3 and dome you for 12 or whatever. -8, gain control of all artifacts and creatures target opponent controls. So really, really good ability there. I mean, just a one-sided, I guess, what's the card I'm thinking of? Anyway, control effect, I guess. So anyway, those are the Planeswalkers. Like I said, I was having a really hard time just featuring one or two of them. They're just all really good. We're going to break into our creatures here. There are quite a few effects that lower the mana costs of your artifacts, like Chief Engineer. Really cool card. Artifact spells you have... God, I can't talk today. Artifact spells you cast have Convoke. So really, really good. Makes things basically cost 0 for the most part, because I mean most of your stuff is colorless anyway. So there's that guy, and then we've got a little bit of control with Ethersworn Canonist. Really good way to slow down your opponents. There's a lot of decks that will just cast like 5 or 6 spells a turn, like your Storm decks, stuff like that. And this just says no, so there's that. Plus you don't care because most of your stuff's artifacts anyway. Then we've got Muzio, or however you want to say it, Visionary Architect. This guy is obviously an amazing commander on his own. A lot of people have built this deck. It's the new Arkham Daxam, and it's absolutely bonkers. I know we talk about Seth a lot, but he broke this guy like wide open as soon as he came out, and we'd never want to play against it again. I don't think any of us are building it because of that. But inside this deck, he's great, obviously. I mean, it is an artifact deck. I just love having him in a 4-color deck because he just works wonders. So there's that. And then we've got a Shimmer Mirror. You've got to have this guy in a deck like this. Just being able to cast pretty much your entire deck at instant speed. Awesome. Past that, we've got Crystalline Crawler. Really, really cool card. I've been, like I was telling Eric before we even started this, I've been in games where people have like played Hall of Gemstones and like Blood Moons and stuff like that. This guy just helps you get around that, because there are a lot of ways to put +1/+1 counters back on this guy, so you can just keep ripping him off. Keep in mind, you can take them off at any rate. So if you want to take off 2 of them, you can take off 2 of them. If you want to just take off 1 of them, you can just take off 1 of them. So he also just puts +1/+1 counters on himself. So with like an unwinding clock, you can get up to 4 mana at the beginning of your next turn. So there you go. And then we're going to talk about a card that is absolutely broken, Fairy Artisans. If you haven't gotten your copies of this card, I would go out and get them now. This card will be a Commander mainstay from now on, I'm guessing. I'm surprised I don't see him more often. He fits amazingly in like Bant decks, like ETB decks, stuff like that. But anyway, in this deck, he is also absolutely ridiculous because the token he creates is actually an artifact, so it works into our strategy. There are a lot of tokens, just creatures that we play ourselves that we would like to make a copy of. So yeah, an amazing card. Get your copies now before it's a $20 card overnight, which it may already be now that I think about it. Then we've got another really big artifact staple, and that's Master Transmuter. Yeah, Eric just put his hand over his heart because he knows the power of this card. It's absolutely bonkers. I will swear by it till the end of time. Include this in any artifact build that has blue in it. I'm promising you right now that it's just absolutely broken. And then we've got another newcomer. We've got Padim, Consul of Innovation. There we go. Really cool card. I have played a few games with it out, and it definitely does help you. Usually people just, have to do that whole thing where they have to remove this first before they get rid of anything else. So, it's drawing the hate from the rest of your cards, like especially now that a lot of people are actually playing a Braid in our format that I've found, which is kind of funny. But, they have to have that Path to Exile or whatever in order to get to your other artifacts. So really cool card. I like it. I haven't really seen a whole lot of builds with it as a commander, but I think as a budget commander, it could work really, really well. So there's that. And then we've got a card that is near and dear to my heart, and that's Send Triplets. One of the very first commander decks I ever built was Send Triplets, and I loved it, but it never really took off that far. I mean, it worked okay. It wasn't the best. It won me a few games, but it definitely wasn't competitive. Whereas in this deck, it's actually way, way better, in my opinion, like way more competitive. Just because of the way the deck can reanimate things from the graveyard so easily. Like, I've had people kill some triplets like 4 times, you know, and then just keep bringing it back, and then doing it over again. It shuts down a player for their turn, and, you know, usually what I do is I pick the control player, that way they can't respond to the stuff that I'm doing, and then you just cast their best stuff so they get even more upset about it. Like, I've done so many Cyclonic Rifts with this card, it's not even funny. So, Send Triplets. And then we got a Marionette Master. This is kind of one of the pseudo-win conditions in this deck. It definitely has a vibe with like clue tokens and stuff like that, which there aren't very many of in this deck, but I've seen a lot of builds where they definitely include a lot of clue tokens. But anyway, in this deck, there's so many other types of artifacts that we don't need to put together a synergy like that. So, like, you know, I've had like 3 mirrors on the board before, and I've just sacrificed them, you know. Yeah, so like Mirror Battlesphere and this card work amazingly together. Same with like, what is that card's name? The flying guy, the Anyway, I can't think of it. The guy that enters with a battlefield with 5 counters on it, and then you can take a counter off and make a Thopter.
Thopter Assembly?
No, that's not the one. I can't. Anyway, leave it in the comments because we can't think of the name right now. But anyway, Marionette Master, amazing card, really good. It's kind of unassuming, to be honest. A lot of people don't really look at it like, oh, this is a huge threat, and then all of a sudden, oh my god, that's a huge threat, especially if you can like add power to her somehow. Yeah, just amazing. So past creatures, we've got our artifacts. First up, we've got a Sculpting Steel, essential in pretty much any artifact deck. Once again, this will come down and copy your Panharmonicons, your planar bridges, your any of that crazy stuff that's coming out recently. Which, you know, as a side note, the whole block, you know, a couple blocks that have come out recently have really boosted this thing. I mean, this deck coming out too, like, it turned artifacts into a menace. It was insane. Like, before, yeah, there was a lot of really good pieces for like Shroom and stuff like that, but then all of a sudden it was just like, well, let's just take every piece that we have and then upgrade it by 2 ticks, and now we're just absolutely insane. So past that, we've got Panharmonicon. There are a lot of ETB effects in this deck, of course. Having this on the battlefield and then casting Breya is amazing, because then you have 4 Thopters, now you have plenty of things to sacrifice. Pretty much having this card on the battlefield and then casting anything is really, really good, especially like your Combustible Gearholds, your Noxious Gearholds. Yeah. It's like they made an Artifact Titan cycle, and like they were just like, here's all the candy, here you go. Then we've got another one, Unwinding Clock, an absolutely bonkers card again. It really helps you set up, especially early game, if you get this on the board and then you just have a whole bunch of Mono Rocks or a Shimmer Mirror or something like that in your hand. So then you can really just start setting up way faster than your opponents. It's like having a Seedboard Muse almost, you know, just for you, essentially. People, once again, this actually, honestly, the more I play it, the less people really pay attention to it. It's kind of weird. I don't know why, but they're just like, oh, whatever, he's untapping his artifacts. He's doing artifact things. But I mean, if you go back to even thinking about like that Crystalline Crawler, like having that and this is a huge boon, because all of a sudden you're just gaining 3 mana or 4 mana at the beginning of your turn, you know, that you wouldn't have otherwise. So really cool card. And then we've got another one of my favorites, and that's Mirrorworks. This is kind of like the earlier version of Panharmonicon in a few ways, except for this actually makes you a token, whereas Panharmonicon just copies the effect, but I'm using it to the same effect, you know, getting those double triggers of like two combustible Gearholds entering the battlefield. So really fun, love this card. I remember way back in the day when I first started playing with it, I actually thought that I could pay for the mana, you know, pay the ability unlimited times, and I cheated a few times, and then finally somebody was like, that's not the way that works. You can't make 10 copies of your blah, blah, blah. So anyway, really cool card. Really good with Wormcoil Engine, I will say that. Okay, and then we've got a little bit of a dirty card here, and that's Mindslaver. You definitely can do the Mindslaver lock in here. I think I've only ever been pushed to do that once, and that was because the other player was playing a little bit combo heavy, so I just had to take care of him right away. But Mindslaver, great card. really fun. Even if you're just taking one turn from somebody and not doing like a lock, it is still a blast because then you can really mess with somebody. I remember one time I mind-slavered one of my friends, Brian, and he was playing his Kaneos and Tiro deck, and basically he had a way to put all of his lands back in his hand, so I put all of his lands back in his hand, and that was pretty dirty. It was a lot of fun though. So yeah, Mindslaver. Then we've got a Planar Bridge, a really cool card to get basically anything you want out of your deck. I usually go and find Panharmonicron with this, which is kind of funny, but it just is usually the way this works. There are a few other things that you can grab, obviously, like the Mirrorworks or the Mindslaver or anything like that. Really cool card that came out. I believe this was Kaladesh, or maybe it was Aether Revolt. Yeah. I love the artwork. It looks so cool. It reminds me of like one of those like sci-fi channel like box arts or something like that. It's just so cool. It's so colorful. Okay, so on from Artifacts, we are going to go into our single featured enchantment, and that's Thopter Spy Network. This card works great in pretty much any artifact build. Once again, it's essentially getting you free Thopters at the beginning of your turn. So yeah, and let's see, it's got another ability. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it's giving you Thopters to swing at somebody next turn to draw cards. So really, really good. Obviously combos with Breya's ability to sacrifice artifacts so you can get more and more, artifacts and just just make a nice little loop for yourself. Past our enchantments, we've got our one featured instant speed spell, and I'll talk a little bit about this. Enlightened Tutor. I know we've talked about tutors on this channel before. It is a thing. I play it every once in a while in EDH. It's definitely, it's fair to me, especially things like this that put it on top of your library. So your opponents sometimes, usually depending on how you play that, they always have a chance to respond to it being on top of your library. I've had so many good cards just milled off the top by like some stupid random card that I didn't even know was on the battlefield. So in this deck, it's not such a big deal to have that happen to you though, because you're playing mainly from your graveyard anyway, so it's like whatever. Really cool card, really like it. Great in like Voltron decks or just anywhere. I've seen so many people grab land tax with this card, which totally makes sense. That's a really good turn one play. I've seen a lot of people just grab a Soul Ring with this, another really good turn one play. So yeah, Enlightened Tutor, amazing card. I recommend having it. Our one featured sorcery is Scrap Mastery. This came out in the Duretti deck and has been a mainstay in pretty much any artifact deck that runs red to me. It is basically a living death for you. You're just bringing all your artifacts back from the graveyard and then swapping the ones that you have in play. The really cool thing with this deck, because of Breya, you can essentially sack your entire board before you do this and then just bring it all back. It's a little risky, but it definitely can work to great effect. Basically just win the game there too, especially if you're bringing things like Panharmonicon and stuff like that back. So there's that. And then let's get into our featured lands here. We've got first up an Academy Runes, an essential in any artifact deck. It really just can save your bacon. I've grabbed so many, I remember one time specifically I was about to die to a upkeep trigger and all I had to do was get somehow, have some way to gain life. And I just grabbed my Wormcoil Engine and then kept it up for a turn and then swung with it next turn, and then I was back in the game essentially. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this. There's a bajillion. So Academy Runes, especially with high priority targets like, the Panharmonicrons and the Planar Bridges and stuff like that. Send Triplets is another big one. And then we've got Inventor's Fair. I'll read this card for you because it's kind of obscure. I don't think a lot of people really play it or as much as they should. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, you gain 1 life. So a way to gain life. And then you can add tap colorless mana to your mana pool. Then 4 and tap, sacrifice Inventor's Fair, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only if you control 3 or more artifacts. So really cool tutor ability that actually puts it right into your hand, and it's not that big of a cost either. So really cool card. I love the artwork. Pretty much all of Kaladesh had amazing artwork. And once again, I love that they had a whole 2 blocks that were just focused on artifacts again. I don't know. I think it'll be a while before we go back to Mirrodin just because of this, because I don't think they would want to do that. Artifact block, non-artifact block, non-artifact block, and then artifact block again, and then we're just all crazy. So with that is my Breya Etherium Shaper deck. As always, check out the tapped out list for the full breakdown, and then we will catch you guys next time. Thanks.